and the committee. So Mia, just let us know when we're live.
Okay, you are up.
All right, Mia, thank you so much. I'm Kevin Galligan, Chair of the Orleans Select Board. Welcome everybody to this joint meeting of the Town of Orleans Select Board, Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, and the Affordable Housing Committee. Today is Thursday, December 10th, 2020, and I'm seeing Meph Runyon, Andrea Reed, Cecil Newcomb, Mark Matheson, and myself, 5 select board. So I'll call our meeting to order. Next up, Mr. McLennan.
Yes, welcome, Alan McLennan, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. I am present, Ward Gorey is present, Henry Brem, Alexis Matheson, and Andrea Reed. So we have a quorum of 5 out of 8.
And the Affordable Housing Committee, Nancy.
I'm sorry, my name says Robert Wren. My name is Nancy Wren. Sorry about that today. I'm not going out. I see Bill Stockard. I'm having trouble seeing who else I have. Oh, Fran, thank you, Fran. And is Rich here? Rich Kendall? Shelley Dawson? Well, they're all supposed to be here. I don't know. Can I call the meeting to order with 2 people?
Technically, you don't have a quorum, but let us be on the lookout, Nancy, for any call-ins.
They should be here. Okay, so let me, I think Rich's, it might be Rich's number, that 5008. I think that's his number. Rich
Okay.
Kendall, sorry.
Mia, could you bring that telephone number ID person in?
I think that's him.
So telephone numbers can't be panelists, but that person can speak. They're just choosing not to, but they
Oh,
have
okay.
permission to speak.
Let me just see who else is here. I don't know. Okay, that's the
It's
best I
fine.
can do right now.
Great. We'll be on the lookout for them as they come in.
Okay.
So if I could, I'll just say a few words to kick things off, and really want to say I'm so pleased on behalf of the Select Board, in coordination with the Affordable Housing Committee and the Trust today, to kick off this feasibility study. Really thanks to the voters at our October 31st town meeting. That was Article 20 that funded this feasibility study to evaluate the potential reuses of the Governor Prince properties along Route 6A to include affordable housing and other compatible uses. I think, as you folks know, and others just for the tape, the town of Orleans was approached by the Ross family, the trustees and managers of the Governor Prince Motel, for many years to see if the town had any interest in acquiring it. Again, a number of executive sessions were held with respective boards, and we, as the town, entered into a letter of intent that did many things, including called out for this feasibility study to include public participation as we evaluate the potential uses. I think it's important today to hear from George, Alan, Judy Barrett, and her team from Barrett Planning, who will confirm the scope of work, identify information needs that the study will begin to undertake. I also think it's helpful for us to take away not only what the study does, but also what it will not do. The study will, by January 29th of 2021, provide us hopefully enough information sufficient to bring an article to the floor of town meeting in 2021, our annual town meeting. So voters can support the acquisition of the properties and then allow us to get even more work done to bring it to the next level. That'll include preparation of more studies, analysis, maybe getting into more detailed designs, RFPs, and a lot more community input. This is a phased approach. It'll be done at every step of the way to educate us thoughtfully, enlist support from our committees, community as we move forward. We do have a tight time frame, and I know, Judy, in your proposal, you were wondering who would be best to lead this, but given the study timeframe is so tight, I do think it's best to keep the study led jointly by the Select Board and the Affordable Housing Committee and Trust, with input that is a part of the scope from other boards, committees, residents, and businesses. And to that end, I did suggest just the other day to George Missouri that we develop an online community survey to help gather input and feedback along the way. So if we could add that to the to-do list, I know there'll be many things we'll take away to work on after today, but that's one suggestion I would really encourage us to do. So with that said, Alan, would you like to just say a few words? Come off mute, please.
There we go. I don't want to take any time. I just want you to know that the trust has participated in this process since the beginning, and we are interested in trying to figure out the best uses for this site, and we will be very active participants. Thank you.
So George and Judy, next up to you. We've kind of covered meeting purpose. Take us through scope of the study and get into the meat of it.
Glad to do so, Kevin. Why don't I just start off, because I just want to talk about the scope for a minute. And I know, Judy, the real purpose of this meeting is for you all to convey to Judy what your hopes and dreams are for the study and what we're going to look at. We put together an RFP or an RFQ to obtain a qualified consultant with a cap of less than $30,000. In the modern world, this requires someone to be very efficient with their time. We've got a consultant who's out of Plymouth who is Zooming and not driving down here on a regular basis. So there's some advantages to this format. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I want to hand it over to Judy. But what I'd really like to do is, you've all been sent the RFQ and the proposal. Anybody who wanted to could read it. This is a quick study, as Kevin says, and we need to allow time after that study for the boards to deliberate before a decision on whether to move forward to the next step on this. So I think, I don't know if you have the scope in front of you, but I just want to walk through the 6 or 7 steps. So we all have the same expectations as to what's going to happen over the next 60 days. Today we're doing the kickoff meeting, town officials. The purpose here is to clarify the goals and to talk about the tasks that the consultant will do and the available resources that she either has or will need. After this meeting, there will be a lull from our perspective, probably not from mine, in terms of the consultant will use available data to determine housing needs that could best be served on this site. They're also going to investigate the number and types of housing projects that are either underway or maybe in the planning stages in the region, because that's something we've talked about. Too many housing projects hitting the streets at the same time could lead to a glut and some difficulty in initial rent up. So we want to be mindful of what's going on there. We want to consider the market demand and then the potential for this site to meet affordable community and workforce and maybe some market rate housing. It could be a mix. I think as we all know, the Penrose site at 19 West Road is looking like a housing tax credit project. So that is primarily for incomes of 60% and below. So maybe this site can meet some different housing income slots and different family size slots so we start to better serve the whole community. So after the housing evaluation of needs, they're going to evaluate the land and for the recommended type of housing and determine how it should be laid out on the property. We have also asked the consultant to find a building inspector who can determine what it would take to bring those current buildings up to meet the Mass Building Code. And I believe I had some conversations with Judy, and she's already got somebody lined up to do that, which is excellent. You know, the heart of this is going to be to consider whether there are compatible uses with affordable housing that should be considered. Right now, I anticipate we're just looking at public uses, but there may be some other uses that can be brought to bear. We just, have to be mindful in a short time with limited resources. We want to keep the inquiry limited so we get a good result. The consultant will be looking at the impacts of any proposed development on the site in terms of, demand for town services, water, sewer, the like. You all are aware of those things. So after Barrett Consulting has done that, they'll come back in a public meeting. I think the second public meeting is there could be a lot of give and take because we want to hear the initial findings from the consultants, what they think based on their professional expertise and study is best for the site, and then and get some reaction from the public. And I hope that the Hollywood Squares that we're looking at right now will be doubled or tripled so that we get a lot of input at that meeting, because nothing will be set in stone at that second meeting. After that, the Barrett will go back and take into account all the comments that are received and present a final report to the select board and the Housing Trust on or around January 29th. So you have time to take it in and market it if necessary. So I don't really want to take a whole lot more time. I just want to say, for those who may not have seen the proposal, Judy Barrett is a planning consultant with extensive experience in both housing and economic development in Eastern Massachusetts over several decades. Her focus is on strategic planning, and I think this is a terrific matchup to have a specific area plan need with somebody who's been doing the big picture and the little picture for so long. So I think with that, we are fortunate to have her, and I look forward to the discussion. I'm going to sit back to the extent I can and let Judy and her team take it from here. So Judy, if you'd like to jump in.
So I put some questions together that I'm just going to bring up on slides because it's just kind of an easy way to sort of guide the discussion, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Where are we? Hold on one sec. It's always tricky when I start this. Here we are. Hold on just a sec. It's always weird when that goes black like that. But anyway, so nothing fancy about the art here. I actually, the day I was going to go down to see the site, which I'm hoping we can do this weekend, or perhaps even tomorrow, we had a snowstorm. So I did not go down that Saturday, but I do want to go down and take a look at the site. So we're really excited about this project. Often we don't always get to do this work at this point in a process. Sometimes we're brought in a little bit later and some decisions have already been made, and we sort of wish we'd been able to get a little more in on the ground floor. So I'm really excited to be here, and I appreciate all of you participating. My comment in the proposal about a project steering committee versus Board of Selectmen is totally your call. I think the only issue we had was just kind of making sure that there was a structure in place to move the project efficiently on your end, and it's very clear to me that that exists. So we're fine. So I have some questions that I want to ask you about kind of housing needs in the community from your perspective. Went back to the 2017 housing study, which I have reviewed, and then think a little bit about maybe what some of those other needs might be that people are going to be interested in. I kind of know from the RFP what some of that might be, but I'd like to get your input as well. And then I want to talk a little bit about just community participation in this and how best to accommodate input from the public, given the short timeline that's available for this project. So my first question, these are, not complicated, and I'm sure you guys have all talked about this stuff, but what do you think has changed in Orleans, if anything, since the 2017 study was finished that Karen worked on? What's changed? My question is, of course, to what extent can we rely on the themes and the issues that were raised in that study versus things that maybe really need another look today because things have changed? What do you think?
So Kevin, I wonder if we can do this with the screen share, or if you need to see people to notice if they would like to speak up.
George, good question. I actually did maneuver Judy's slides to be much tinier, so I actually could see if people did raise hands. And maybe to kick it off, one thing, Judy, that
Mhm.
we have heard
Okay.
relative to what's changed.
Yeah.
And it was spoken right on the floor or at the parking lot at Nauset Beach,
Yeah.
is the incredible demand from out of town purchasers of residential property. Real estate is becoming further and further unattainable for
Mhm.
just working people.
Yeah.
We have seen a change, whether it's because of COVID or a combination of timing, where people say, sure, I'll buy a second or third home, and they think nothing of putting cash down and wiping out anybody that might have had a chance to make a local offer. So that is one thing that has dramatically changed. We are just going to see the need, to me, be incredibly more challenging.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on this?
Andrea, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, and the companion piece to what Kevin is saying is the threat to local businesses. COVID has forced many businesses to close or limp along, and lots of people have lost jobs. So some of our tracking in terms of what's an average income for a working person as reported this year or in the past year at around 41,000, I believe next year will be far reduced. And so it's a pressure from the other end.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin?
Nancy, go ahead. Off mute, please.
Kevin?
Yes, those are the two major issues that have been brought up, but the third one that has sort of come up through anecdotally is, as we were talking about our projects, is the need for, our study asked for 800 units, 85 rentals and 15 home ownership. And I think we're still needing those, but I think we also have heard from the community that we need something else for workforce or for families, or another dimension that didn't really come out in terms of the study. So I think that would be the third piece.
Great. Mark, you were gonna,
I apologize, Nancy, didn't mean to step on you there. Yes, Kevin. So in regard to what Andrea was referring to with business closings and the decline in wages of some of the local working people here, I think a question that arose at one of our meetings a short time ago was the not knowing if those people that are actually buying the houses in Orleans and moving here. And ironically, I just ran into a couple around the corner from us last week, a family that had actually moved here from New York, living here year round, work online, have kids in college, the whole thing. So I'm wondering if, with that demographic coming in here, we have our local traditional workforce, people that have grown up here, lived here, and their salaries are declining. And yet we have some very affluent people moving in here, living here, working here. So I'm just wondering what effect that's going to have on the AMI for the town of Orleans when we kind of recalculate that over the next year or two, and the impact that would have on our ability to get, housing. And then one other thing I just want to touch base on, because we were looking at, some of the other studies that have been done in conjunction with the area and the site here. And I think one of the things that came to mind was a year or two ago, the YMCA did a big survey, and I think that might be helpful for the consultant to maybe look at the study the YMCA did on the Lower Cape, because they were looking at areas where they could build a new facility and serve it to most people and be of the most use in the communities. And so I think they probably have a lot of data that's germane to the town of Orleans and this site, and whether useful for any kind of recreational activity or whatever. So there are a couple of things out there, other than, as we know, things have changed a lot since the 2017 study. We do have the Cape Cod Commission's plan that they brought to the town a couple of years ago as well. But that YMCA thing was a piece I don't think we've looked at before.
Helpful, thank you.
Go ahead, Nancy, again.
I'll just say one thing about the study, because I've heard this a couple of times, that this study is outdated. I really don't think the trends have changed as much as people think, because we compared that with the 2006 data that George had, and we've been looking at a lot of this data, and the trend has moved slowly. It has not moved incrementally, and I think we should trust in the study in terms of where it's taking us.
You
Ward,
mean
go
in
ahead,
terms
please.
of the work that Karen did in
Yeah,
2017?
I think it, we spent a lot of time on the Affordable Housing Committee, reading that and rereading it and trying to make an engagement process for the community. We've felt that it's accurate in a lot of ways, and it's a good guiding document.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
Ward, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to build on what Nancy was saying. Judy, I was happy that it showed that you were looking to update selected statistics in the study. And, I was new to the area and read the study, and I think there is a need for a clear, concise, and quotable statement about what are the needs in our area. The study is dense and requires a certain discipline to work your way through and to piece things around. And if as Judy mentioned, we are I think the momentum has shifted in favor of affordable housing on the select board and across the town. But we need to have this community engagement process in order to bring the whole town is moving forward with a sense of shared values about what and why we're doing affordable housing. If your work can unearth any of those kinds of quotable nuggets and stories, it would be very valuable.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ward. Who's next? Mark, go ahead again.
Just one quick thing, and I agree with what Nancy and Ward are saying. The only reason I brought that forward is because, we've mentioned, we even talked about it at the select board meeting last night, that, we have all these other projects that are now starting to come to bear. And I think when we looked at, the potential for the Cape Cod 5 site in Orleans, we did have some discussion about, the new site that just opened up in Eastham that Orleans participated in, that brought housing into the Lower Cape area. There's, another project looking at Truro. There's another one in Brewster. And so those are the kinds of things I think we need to kind of look at. If there are places in neighboring communities that are bringing in, affordable rental units for a 1 or 2 bedroom, then taking those into account, maybe we need to look at what gap in Orleans needs to be filled. Do we need more single bedroom affordable rental units, or do we need to have the larger family, or maybe the ownership types of units? So yeah, I think the 2017 study, I'm not saying that that's outdated. I'm just saying we've got all this other stuff going on around us. So I think we want to make sure that we're satisfying the need of Orleans, and kind of looking at how that need might change just based on what happens in the neighboring towns that we know, things that are in the pipelines.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible the needs may be fairly consistent with what Karen identified, but the market has changed. And so what dynamic does that introduce in the process? I think that's part of what we're going to want to get at.
Good. Alan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just on that point, Judy, just a couple of statistics that might help you. The median single-family sales price currently is $785,000. That is an 18% increase from last year. Now, we still have about 600 condominium units in the town of Orleans. they have been sort of the middle income housing portfolio for us. And 15 months ago, we bought a 2-bedroom condominium, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, nice condominium arrangement. We paid $235,000 for that. In the last year, the median condo sales price in the town of Orleans has been $363,300, which is a 23% increase from just a year ago. So this free market housing supply is no longer affordable for people who are 100 to 125% of AMI. And it's just disappeared in a year.
There we go. Alan, thank you so much for that data.
You want me to move on with some of these other questions?
Please, Judy, go ahead.
I think the conditions or needs that, that the study didn't cover, in some ways, I think we probably already sort of understand that. I mean, if nothing else, COVID has certainly changed a whole lot of things. But, if you think of something about that second question, let me know. But I'd almost rather jump to the third bullet because, one of the things we need to do is just start talking to people. We need to get a sense from your local real estate or development community, kind of who's up to what. So we know, we have a better sense than we have now of what the competing product might be out there, either known or sort of planned. And I'm wondering if you can give us some suggestions, just rattling off the top of your head here as we talk, maybe some people we should be talking to, aside from you folks. Who else should we talk to?
I've got one, only because I referenced his speaking to us at town meeting, Bob Wilkinson. He knows the real estate market. He has such a dedication to supporting affordable housing and community efforts. George has got his contact info, but a short conversation with Bob would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Fran, please.
I'm sorry.
Fran, come off mute, please.
Sorry. Noel Pina, head of the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
Andrew, you were gonna jump in?
Yeah, I was going to jump in because the planning board a couple of years ago had a proposal by Todd Thayer in front of us that did not get built. And I think it's just as interesting to find out what the barriers are
Right.
as what's possible.
Great, thanks.
So that was approved and it never went forward?
No, it never, it was a proposal at the time and actually it tied in one of the things he raised, which is very much a concern in the downtown area, was the reference to historic structures and the scale of historic structures. So it carried a double kind of awareness of when you add housing stock, do you do it in a way that preserves the character of the town?
Matt, go ahead.
I'll really ask this question of Mark. I'm just wondering if there's anybody in the school system who would be in a position to be aware of, families of students that are encountering housing challenges. And I think the schools might have a pretty interesting perspective on it.
That's a good idea.
Yep.
That often leads us to a different slice of people than we sometimes encounter. So good suggestion. Thank you.
Kevin,
Sure.
So I know you can contact the central office in Orleans, Nauset School District Central Office. And I think Mary Buchanan is our Director of Student Services.
Yep.
And one of the things that we do through the school district is we have a line on all the kids. I mean, we've had kids in the past that have listed their home address as Nickerson State Forest, which is the Nickerson Campground in Brewster.
Yes.
So the school does keep track of those things. And just if I could, I think some of the people that we as a select board have talked to, and I think the Affordable Housing Trust and Affordable Housing Committee in town have talked to the Community Development Partnership down here, that I think their offices in Eastham,
Yep.
Housing Assistance Corporation, located in Hyannis. You know, and you might want to talk to like Christy Senatori from the Cape Cod Commission and even Wendy Norcross from the Cape Cod Chamber.
Okay.
And then I was on a, on a forum call a few weeks ago that included, and it was something from the Cape Cod Commission in terms of they're looking for the impact of their programs to ensure water quality and environmental quality on the Cape and how that impacts building, especially in the affordable housing markets here in the Lower Cape, in the Central Cape area. And so they had a few people from the real estate and development businesses. I think Ryan Castle and Peter Polimas. So I think Ryan is the head of the Cape Cod Real Estate Group, and Peter is a high-end builder here. So their input was, I think, really appropriate in that they were talking about making sure that the one government agency doesn't make it impossible for another agency to actually create housing that's affordable for people by, having such stringent building codes and they're talking about net zero building now. That just places everything out of the market for anyone that's not a millionaire. So I think kind of getting a sense from those people would be helpful as well.
Judy, I think along those same lines, Matt Cole, he is, I believe, president of Cape Associates. They're also a Outer Cape, Lower Cape builder. The unique point of view he would bring also is he sits on the Zoning Board of Appeals. So he really does, I think, understand the regulatory hurdles and yet the challenges he's seeing in terms of what he's being asked to build.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other feedback for Judy on this point?
I would simply say too, that if when we finish this and you're making dinner tonight, you go, oh, I should have told her whatever, just email me or email George or whatever. I mean, I almost didn't include this question because I thought I'm just asking you guys this off the top of your heads, but needless to say, we just want to get going. So if you can give us any names right now, it's a huge help to us.
Yeah.
So thank you. Just based on what you know about your town, who do you think is really struggling to stay there today? And by that, I mean, kind of what kind of households or what age groups or just who seems to be struggling and who's already left that you know? So this is sort of trying to understand who's just really having a hard time even staying in that community today. Because if they're having a hard time today, then other markets of similar composition are going to have a problem too. Who are you losing, do you think?
I don't want to monopolize, but only because I do know a family. It was a long-standing family in Orleans, a mom and dad. He works in the school district in IT. She works at a medical office in town. They, would have loved to stay in Orleans to raise their one young, beautiful daughter, but they moved on. They're in Brewster. And I would love to have had a place for them to raise their young child when they were in a really tiny rental situation with just the two of them. They were getting along. But, once you have a family, you need some more appropriate surroundings. And they found it in Brewster, fortunately, but I want to bring them back to Orleans. I really do. Mav, go ahead.
I did have a conversation the other day with a fellow who's been in the oil burner cleaning business for a while. He was a classmate of my son's at Nauset, and his father was doing the business before him, and he called it homeless, even though he's got a wife and kids and he's living with his mother, because the house that he was living in, the owner sold. And so he had to move out, and he had absolutely no chance of replacing that housing. So that is the kind of story to me that is the most critical, because those people are really the lifeblood of our area. And if we can't find a way to let them live here, I think all is lost.
Yeah. Alexis, you're going to chime in?
Yeah, Mark, can you turn your, yep. So here's a perfect example. I'm nearing my late 20s, and I grew up in Orleans, teach at Nauset High School, and I live with my dad. And I've seen so many of my classmates move away. Some have wanted to, they've stayed away after college. Some, they just don't have career opportunities down here, which is another issue. Diversifying our workforce not workforce, but work opportunities. But the biggest gap, I mean, when I go out before the pandemic, there's not a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds sitting at the Land Ho or other local restaurants, because there's no place for us to live. The rental market is so small.
Yeah.
And most of us are still, even if we have a full-time job, not available to afford one of those $360,000 condos that Alan was talking about earlier. And that is what makes it difficult for people to want to stay, because it's so unattainable. Not only the housing, but also the fact that so many people cannot find the housing, and therefore the social life is affected. So definitely the 20 to 30-year-olds who want to start a family, who want to raise their kids down here, and there's just no opportunity. So they end up moving away, and then the lucky ones are able to move back, but that's even becoming more and more rare.
Well said, Alexis. Ward, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just looking at something from the study, and they had the 1990 census, 2000, 2015. And if you take the age group 25 to 45 living in Orleans, 1990, it was 25% of the population. 2000, it was 17% of the population. 2015, it was 12.5%.
Yeah.
And, who knows when the 2020 census will be available? Probably not by January. But
No, it won't be.
that trend is stark.
Yeah. Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce what you and Meth and certainly what Alexis has said about the young people, but as a really good example, and when you can really see the people that are struggling, is when you look at the opportunities that arise when Habitat for Humanity builds houses, and certainly not just in Orleans, but it has happened in Orleans too, is the applications of the people who are really, really struggling. They a lot of times are single parent working in the service industry. But there are the small families too that have multiple jobs that are just unable to find any affordable type of housing. And when those applications are put out there, and the opportunities for people to afford a home and buy or build their own home through Habitat for Humanity, the numbers it's staggering sometimes, and amazing when you go out and actually meet with some of the applicants and the housing conditions they're living in, and the strugglings they're making. So pretty much just agreeing with what's been said.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Meth.
This is maybe a little bit of a off the main subject here, but the people who struggle to find something to buy struggle I think in the majority of cases, not because they don't have enough income to carry a good sized mortgage, but they don't have the down payment. And that we've had these conversations with a few groups over the last couple of years, and I'm still waiting for us to figure out some way to address that. I know it has all sorts of hurdles, but in this, it would be interesting to see whether there is a path to either low or no down payment purchase affordable housing.
And to that point, Judy, I think you're aware of the Chatham model where folks do have a rent that does escrow a commitment that they purchase. And again, that really does seem to work. And it's probably because it's the right scale and it has a fit for that community. But to that point Meph just raised, that really would be worth exploring if there's an opportunity here to include that element.
Okay, thank you.
Fran, go ahead, please.
At the other end of the spectrum, I am alarmed by the number of, in the study that show the number of people 65 and older who are living alone in their homes. And I think if they're, so they're largely overhoused. So if there was an opportunity for them to rent a smaller condo, if, for example, that would be a house that would come on the market for a family. So I think that that's a dynamic that I don't know how you make that happen, but there is no place for those people to go at this point in time, the ones that are living alone and are often having struggles just being able to afford taxes and maintenance.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else on this one? Judy, before you move on, this is another one that is unique to seasonal areas like Orleans. We do, other than the past COVID pandemic, have an influx of Eastern Europeans, J1 visa students, and they struggle to find a place seasonally. I mean, sometimes 9 of them in one room, and they're sleeping on top of each other in bunks and with one hot plate. So it really is inappropriate from a health and safety standpoint. But I know we talk year-round affordable, that's from the study, but that really is an element of our population that we also rely on for commerce, business, and I'm not saying we need to solve it here, but don't miss that element. It's an important element.
You know, it's interesting you should say this because I work in Nantucket and I hear it from them all the time. It is a huge issue. Are they coming to Orleans to work in hospitality, food service, summer job type situation? Is that that's what's drawing them? Okay.
And the big draw is Shaw's and Stop and Shop. Those are our two supermarkets on either end of town, and they get their contract there. They get the approval from their consulate or embassy, and they literally get dropped off by the bus with not even a place to stay.
Oh God, wow.
So, but that's a little off topic. Meph, go ahead.
Well, it may be off topic, but I'll take it one step further, and that is, I never let this conversation go by without advocating for my pet solution, which is true dormitory style housing.
Right.
And you know, I think that you could pretty much meet all that housing need if you had the rules and the zoning to allow that, especially with the sewers coming in.
Yep.
Andrea, go ahead, please.
Actually, to build on Meph's, Judy, at one point we had a proposal from a young couple in town, transplant, who have already rehabbed the Army Navy store into co-working space. The idea, and this hits the economic development, of a wintertime use like Writer's Prize or a retreat that is then summertime turned into J1 housing.
Yes, right.
So, you know, in terms of economic development, there we might hit on this wonderful match-up of needs that would grow our year-round economy at the same time.
Yeah, that is really the critical issue with the dormitory approach, which does make sense for seasonal helpers, but it's got to make economic sense year round. And how do you do that? Yeah. Thank you. Want to move on to the next bullet, Kevin?
Please.
Okay. So I know we're going to get into this more in the research for this project, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on, you know, what does affordability mean in Orleans? And does it make sense to be talking about DHCD income limits for units that would be affordable in this context, which, you know, begs the question, if you're going to create affordable housing, how important is it for the units to count toward the subsidized housing inventory? Or are you really just trying to get an affordability that meets local needs, even if it's not SHI eligible? I mean, some of you have mentioned the term workforce housing, and I always ask people, what is that in your head? Because everybody's got a different concept of what workforce housing is. So, help me maybe sort of understand what you're thinking about the income limits and how important is it that anything meets SHI?
Judy, I'm surprised all the hands aren't going up, but go ahead, Andrea.
Well, actually, I want to actually broaden that because we know that it's anywhere up to 200% of AMI. But I know that the Housing Trust has talked about the impact of continuing to isolate communities by income level as opposed to integrating and market, all these terms. I don't believe we've as a community decided on what which definitions go with which numbers yet. But I really would like us, as we consider housing, also to undo the connection between isolating community by income level and integrating on that.
So next up, I know Mark wants to address this. Go ahead, Mark.
I think one of the things that we've looked at is that we get into a situation where even people that have a good job down here can't afford to buy in because the market has gone so high.
Mhm.
And so they don't qualify because their income is so high. They don't qualify for rental assistance. They don't qualify for special low interest loans or whatever because their income is high.
Yep.
Yet even with that high income, they can't afford to buy a house here.
Mhm.
So we did talk a little bit about going to the legislature, I think, to try and get our the ability to move our AMI up to 120 or 150 or whatever. Provincetown has done that because they clearly have a huge values up there. If we look at just our police and fire people can't afford to live in town, and they're making good salaries, with the family. They can't afford to live here. We have the skilled tradespeople, the carpenters, the electricians. I know one of my friends was paying $40 an hour for carpenters, and they were all driving here from off Cape because none of them could afford to live in Orleans at $40 an hour, working every day, 6 days a week, some of them, I think Alexis alluded to it earlier, teachers. I've been a teacher here for 47 years, and I've seen an acceleration in our hiring young teachers and having them leave after a year or two because they just can't afford to live here. There's no social life. They're trying to get their master's degrees, which is required to continue to teach in Massachusetts. So they're trying to find a program where they can get a master's. The internet service here, now that we're doing online learning with the schools and stuff, we're finding that the internet service here is severely lacking.
Really?
And so between housing costs and lack of internet service and lack of social life, those people they're here for a year or two and leave.
Yeah.
So, the affordability issue, as I said, is just, even with people making good money, the prices are so high, they can't do it. So what kind of assistance can we bring to the table to try and keep those people here?
Okay. Thank you. Kevin, you're on mute.
Katie, come off mute. Go ahead, please.
Who's speaking?
Catherine Wibby.
Hi, Judy. Katie Wibby, how are you?
Hi, thanks.
I hear what everybody's saying, and that there certainly is an affordability gap that we're dealing with in Orleans, but I'm sure I don't need to remind you that as the trust and the Affordable Housing Committee, our charge is affordable housing, big A affordable. So, the funding to meet that gap, and we've always struggled with, how do we address those issues? And we don't have a solution for that yet. But I don't want to speak for everybody in the trust or the Affordable Housing Committee, but I can say that, our charge is limited to the big A affordable. Certainly we wouldn't support all housing efforts, but just didn't want that to go without saying.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
Good point. And Judy, just before I get to Nancy, this project is funded both with town money for pretty much general use and evaluation. So you're not constrained by the capital A affordable, but the money that did come from the trust is focused only and can be used to study the affordable component.
Understood.
So we did that specifically so that we're not constraining any thoughts, ideas.
Yep.
Nancy, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to reemphasize just what Katie and you just said, but I'll say it in my own words too. I wanted that point about us being a charge for affordable housing, but this opportunity that we have to look at this Governor Prince thing is as a golden opportunity in a lot of ways, because I keep hearing, how does the economics fit into this? How does small A affordable housing fit into this? And I really think we've been wrestling with these things for several years now, talking about this. And I think this is our opportunity to really see, can we merge these things, or can we find some kind of a pathway forward for all of these concerns, because they're all valid. And I think that they're all doable, but I think we need somebody to lead the way a little bit. And I'm hoping you're going to be that person.
Excellent. Ward, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I guess what I've learned is that the word affordability is a slippery one. And is it affordable, meaning can you live there without spending 50% of your income? That's whether you can live there. Or then is it affordable based on the the AMI and the different limits that are set for income? A word that I found helpful was attainable. And that's probably been kicked around. I'm sure I'm not the first one to hear it, but I think that it's really important that we, as somebody had alluded to, find the language to present these things, not as this versus that, but as a common objective for all the range of income that's
Very good.
attainable.
Thanks, Ward. Meth, go ahead, please.
I'll count myself in the group that's been waiting for the town of Orleans to reach the 10% count on the affordable housing stock to escape the vulnerability to developer type 40Bs. And, I still want to get there, but we seem to be close to actually getting there. And once we get there and we're no longer vulnerable to that, I'd be all up for supporting creating housing that doesn't necessarily qualify for that count, because the only reason for getting to the 10% is to escape the 40B. And just on the other income side of things, we talked a little bit about, I personally, and I think there's other people that have an interest, a strong interest, and a pretty maybe urgent interest to try to get the Orleans AMI limits raised. And a lot would change if that happened. And there's probably time for us to do that before anything would ever materialize on the Governor Prince property.
Thanks, Meth. Go ahead, George, please.
So on that, Meth, I think what would be helpful for Judy to provide us with her background is, so what are the implications if you start doing projects that are above 80% or above 100% workforce numbers? What happens to the financial formula that goes into making construction viable? And since I have the floor, on 40B, we have 304 SHI units. We have 3,290 year-round housing units in Orleans. So we're 25 shy of the 10% goal as of today. So if you bring the project that we've been talking about earlier online, Orleans is past the 10%. So at that point, we are no longer subject to an offensive 40B application. They can still come in, but there's not a presupposition that you have an enormous housing need that needs to be met. Thanks.
Well, you may also find when the new Census 2020 housing counts come out that you are already over 10%. One of the things that I'm watching carefully is how much seasonal housing has happened on the Cape in the last 10 years, because in some markets, what was year round in 2010 is seasonal today. That, you know, the seasonal market is so strong, the demand is so strong that stuff that was year round has become vacation or seasonal housing. And so, you know, the denominator could change just because of that factor. So even if you've had housing growth, depends on how much of that was seasonal and how much of what was already year round has become captured by that seasonal market. You could easily find yourselves over 10%.
And Judy, I think you are having a very good sense being in Plymouth of what's going on in Orleans. It really, it's happening. And I think just jumping ahead, just my view, and I think you've heard it echoed, that last bullet point, how important is counting to SHI. I think the more important thing is what you asked before. How do these make sense in Orleans? That's the answer.
Yeah, that's really helpful to hear. Why don't I move on to some of the other, or let's, I'm sorry, Ward, did you want to say something too?
Well, I just was, looking at the charge to the Affordable Housing Trust as one of the potential funders in here. And we have limits. Creation and preservation of affordable housing for the benefit of low and moderate incomes, households, and the funding of community housing as limited by one of the statutes.
Yep.
So I believe that we need the whole range. It would be nice if we could get some relaxation on the trust's charge. But on the other hand, the people who, are working here who can't afford it, there's the biggest gap down
Yep.
at the low end.
Understood. Okay. I'm going to move on to some of the other questions if you don't mind.
Yep.
Okay.
I have just one quick question before you do that, Judy. I apologize, but just for our own information and your experience, will you have a community with the ability to zone in particular ways? So if the town of Orleans were really amenable to having accessory dwelling units that kind of add, affordable, stable kind of units, because they're not big A affordable, but just the fact that they're small units and they're an accessory dwelling that kind of makes them much more affordable. And Meph had asked a question before about dormitory types residents that would help with our housing for the summer employees and those kinds of things. So that in your experience, if you have communities that are very, very amenable to those kinds of things, does that then take a lot of pressure off of our Affordable Housing Trust and allow them to really do the job that they want to do? That they have so well documented tonight what their charge is and what they're really trying to do, and there's a lot of pressure on them to try and provide that within our market. So if we're able to modify zoning and take some of that pressure off, is that a realistic scenario for the town, that we can help ourselves out by modifying some of our zoning?
So I'm going to see if I can understand your question. Like if, for example, if the town modified its zoning to say, provide for dormitory style development, which by the way, to the Census Bureau is group quarters housing. It's not even a housing unit. But if you did that and you take some pressure off the market elsewhere, then I would think certainly that might help. But the question is, what's the demand for housing in Orleans? So if the demand is here, and the demand for summer, housing quarters for summer help is sort of here, and it's a short time period, I'm not sure it really has a super effect on the rest of the market. I would have to really look at kind of what numbers we're talking about. It certainly doesn't have any impact on 40B. And I don't really know that it has an impact on the Housing Trust per se, because their mission is largely defined by the statute. So what they can do, I'm sure you probably have a local bylaw like a lot of towns do, but the ultimate umbrella for what a housing trust can do is set by the statute. So they're kind of different buckets, if you will, of housing issues. Did I not answer your question? I'm not sure I did.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I wasn't suggesting that it would directly affect them, because I understand what they're allowed to do by statute. I'm just wondering whether, if you have experience in other towns where the zoning is much more friendly to multiple family units or accessory dwelling units throughout the town, then you don't have as many people that would necessarily need to have assistance from the Affordable Housing Trust.
Possibly. I guess, what the demand is for the ADUs would have an impact, I suppose. For example, if your main need for affordable housing, capital A, is young families, ADUs aren't going to meet that need. So it's what's produced, how it's priced, and who's in demand kind of all have to sort of come together, and the stars have to align, if you will, I think, for it to make a real dent in what's happening market-wide. That's my opinion anyway. So
Thanks.
can we take a look at these questions too?
Sure.
'Cause, I mean, this is another thing that RFP, certainly talked about. There may be some other interest here in what might be done with this property. And so I just want to get a little sense from you folks, based on where you are today and what you're thinking about this site. Do you think affordable housing is capital A, lower A? I don't care for this question. Is that the most important public benefit that might come out of this project? And how important might some of those other possibilities be? Because I understand there's some other needs out there, which we don't want to ignore, but I guess I'd like to get a sense of what's the trade-off here.
And if I could just jump in quickly on the first to speak on this, Judy, is I think it's not just the benefit to be sought from the project. I think we don't want to separate ourselves so far from what the site brings. There are many attributes of the site that are fairly unique. It's adjacent to a bike trail that is so popular. It does have some contours to deal with. When you walk the site, you're going to say, oh my God, this is so perfectly situated, and fill in the blank. It has many, many potentials. And I think part of the reason that was structured the way it is, so we don't exclude consideration of there's a huge amount of traffic that goes by existing. Are there opportunities to maybe pull that traffic in for another compatible use that fits? I'll just also say it's appropriate that we do listen and consider the interest that is out there for a library site. The library is going through an evaluation. They're parked on hold at the moment pending state funding from Mass Library Commission, but they really do need to at least alternatively investigate a site. We've had many in town want more recreation facility locations and uses. We also know that the fire station is going to begin a design of their site or consideration of alternatives. So I think, looking at it, not just the project, but what could the site really be best used for, and meet, a vote of the town meeting in May that we can get thumbs up. That's really what we need to make sure this pathway serves, is a thumbs up. I don't want to be standing there and have this thing go down in flames.
Understood. And I should be clear. I probably should have rewritten that sentence, because in my mind, project is there's going to be an acquisition here perhaps. And
Right.
we don't know what it's going to be for.
Exactly.
That's what I'm using as project, is for the acquisition. And so I probably should have said site. But
No,
thank you for
understood.
clarifying that. You're right.
Matt, go ahead, please.
I'll just sort of speak for myself, and there is an emerging interest in town to become more active in shaping and trying to support the local economy, and trying to give it some vitality in the downtown, and get all the benefits from that kind of economic activity. So this property sits in our village center district, and I think that I would like to know whether there are ways in which this property could contribute to people's thoughts about what can be done to strengthen the local economy.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea, go ahead, please.
To complement that, we're also, during the time of the when we convened the cultural district, we were also looking at magnet uses that would not compete with restaurants or retail, but that people come into communities for social interaction to
Yep.
learn. So if there were a museum or an active magnet, that would also complement and potentially could share a site with on the 5 acres that we're considering.
Okay.
Any other? I think Judy too is, you've got a lot of brain trust here and people, like you said, after the meeting, if people think of things. And I would say it probably helpful for you if people have specific examples, like, did Cheshire, Connecticut do something that is just fabulous, or, Montague, Mass, or, whoever. That would be helpful to give you some basis for, does it have a fit here?
Yeah. I wish we had the budget and the time to do a community-wide
I-
need assessment, because I think that's what I'm hearing, but this is really helpful.
Actually, Kevin,
Andrew, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. I know somebody who's got those statistics on hand. The Cultural Center of Cape Cod has worked close with the community in Yarmouth, and
Yeah.
they actually have what happens to the businesses within walking distance of a vibrant arts facility like that.
Yeah.
So that is easy to get numbers on.
Super. Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts on these questions? No particular order? I suppose that this compatible use thing, I guess, is important to me to get a sense of what you think. Let's say, for example, everybody kind of agrees that something about housing ought to happen on this site. Forget what the ultimate conclusion is, but something about housing. What do you think people would think of as sort of compatible with that on this site?
Andrew, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but it came up in the previous meeting. We were also looking at passive uses in like outdoor recreation or open space uses that would really, it would improve the site for any housing that was there.
Yeah.
And it would complement the bike trail.
Yeah.
Meth, go ahead, please.
I would just mention an event venue, which is something that doesn't exist in Orleans now, and is something that if you're going to try to build the more modern tourist economy, as well as enrich the lives of the people who actually live here year round, that I think also has all sorts of corollary benefits.
Super. Thank you.
One thing, Judy, and I don't know, George, how much time you have left. How many more slides, Judy, do you want to take us through?
Just one more set of questions.
Because I think it might be good to pause if we do have folks that are listening in as attendees. They're about 7 or 8. If any of those folks, particularly in the questions you've heard on this slide or even the previous, if you want to raise your hand or type something in the chat screen, we'll bring you in and pop these ideas for Judy and their team to take away. So I do see quite a few folks. You might be fine just listening in. If you feel we're raising your points, that's fine. But if you'd like to chime in, you're more than welcome to do so. And I'm not seeing any hands go up or chat coming in.
So Kevin, just if nobody else has something right now,
Go ahead, Mark, please.
One other thing. So one of the things that has been important to me in this whole process and for this whole time, and I've said this before, is that, this site in the center of town, in the district it's in for zoning, allows greater density. It's going to be hooked up to the sewer. It's next to the bike path. It's convenient to the downtown that already has a lot of retail space, and a lot of that space is vacant right now. And so to me, this site begs to be used for housing. That I understand that there are other concerns and things in town that people are looking for. But, I also kind of look at this and try and balance it. We have spent years and years and years, 10, 15, 20 years, tailoring our zoning for high density in the downtown district. Nowhere else in town can you do that. We have a sewer system going in the downtown district. It's costing us $60 million to do it so that we could have housing downtown and revitalize our downtown. This site begs for that kind of development there. And so I understand that there's questions about having some other kind of community facility that's there, whether it's, open space or, parkland or this or that. But, I think in all fairness, when you look at how much money the town of Orleans has spent, millions and millions and millions of dollars to buy lands as conservation land, where it's under conservation restriction all over this town. We had a goal of 400 acres of land being put into conservation restriction one way or another. So we've taken 400 acres that could have been 400 individual houses. So we've taken all that land out of the housing market for recreation, for passive recreation, for active recreation. And so, to me, the reality is this is a place that is tailor-made to get housing here, because one of the things that we know is going to enhance the economy of this town is having people live here year round and taking their paychecks and spending it in the town week after week after week for groceries and gasoline and every other service that they want. That's a huge thing, and this site is tailored for that. And I think we're doing a disservice if we start really looking at cutting it up and making it smaller and putting other things in there. That's the last I'm going to say about it.
Thanks, Mark.
Anybody else on these? Because I can just jump to the next slide if you are all set.
Yeah, I don't see any hands going up, Judy. And like I had suggested at the beginning, I think when the time is right, we might do a community survey instrument, just a few questions to get that feedback.
How time?
Excuse me, Kevin.
Who is that?
Kevin, Dewey Landreth.
Oh, Attorney Landreth, please.
I'm not visible. One thing that intrigues me about this site is its size.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about the uses necessarily being compatible. Well, we have a fair amount of space to work with. Furthermore, the question is, well, if you're going to do housing, exactly what kind of density would you like to have in there? You don't want to have such a dense development that it's detrimental to the town. So I'm curious, I was curious that nobody mentioned a movie theater, for example, when we talked about alternative uses. I'm serious. I look at what Chatham did with regard to their movie and I say, what an incredible community to be able to put that together. And so we need attractions downtown. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And this site is a fairly decent walk to this main crossroads of town. So if there's going to be a big traffic consideration in terms of doing anything with this site. So to me, I'd like to look at it not necessarily as a whole, but more as, okay, well, we can divide it. It's readily divisible given the fact that it's right on 6A. So what are the alternative uses? Or maybe there's a couple of alternative uses. So I'm curious about that.
And if I can, Dewey, just to chime in for Judy's background, if she doesn't know, movie theater does bring back very fond memories for a lot in the community. The downtown CVS that is in place now was actually our movie theater. And everybody just went, hung out, even went up into, where the projector area was and mingled with the staff. And it was a fun place to hang out.
I can picture it.
Yep. So next steps.
So I actually had some questions here about sort of public participation and trying to find out what consensus is. And I know our proposal actually included doing a survey at some point in the process. But I do want to ask you, and I know the sort of intervening holiday may complicate things, but does it make sense to try to accommodate some kind of a community discussion meeting about this before we've made findings? I know there's a meeting where we're going to come, we're going to say, this is what we think. And everybody's either going to say, oh my God, these consultants are brilliant, or they're going to say, what is wrong with this woman? But I'm just wondering if, is there a value and a possibility that maybe like right after Christmas, we could do just an online, a community participation. We can ask people some of the questions we've asked you, and anybody who's interested can kind of join it. We'll staff it, we'll organize it, we'll host it if necessary, and just to be able to ask people some questions about their experience in Orleans and what they think the needs are in the community, and what would they like to see on this site, and what things do they think would not be appropriate. Just to get their input before we've kind of come out as a consultant from out of town saying, here's what you guys ought to do. I mean, do you know what I'm trying to say?
I am seeing heads nodding. And I would actually ask, is anyone opposed to that? Andrea, go ahead.
Well, just the timing of it, if you would do the survey first, because then you could advertise the community forum.
We've done that before.
Yeah, I think that would be, it would increase attendance and awareness.
We could do that. I think that's fine. In addition to the survey doing that, I'm sure you guys would be able to put something on your website. And does your town have a system like some do where people can sign up for email notifications?
Yes.
Town hall?
Yep.
So you have ways to reach your, thank God, you guys have it together. We could certainly do that. I think, however, what we're going to want to do is, I wouldn't try to do a survey right now. It's just getting too close to Christmas, but we could have something ready to launch like right after Christmas, leave it open through, that first full week in January. And in that notification about the survey, say, and come talk to us on such and such a date, and we can kind of work all that out. So it would be an early January meeting still, Andrea. It would probably be the second week in January instead of the first. But I think it would be helpful to do that. Really, even if we're just doing it on the eve of now coming to the next meeting and saying, here's what we think. I just hate to do that without talking to people. I know this is a public meeting, and I appreciate that there may be some people, on the call who aren't in the webinar, but I kind of like to open it up and not do a webinar format and see what we can do.
Yep. Ward, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I like the idea of a public meeting. I have been to good, large, well-run, large remote meetings, and to really, meetings that turn you off.
Yeah.
And one of the things I see it as an opportunity to do a combination of idea dissemination and feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the study that was done, George helped use the site of Governor Prince as a possible location.
Yeah.
And there were a series of schematic images of what the site could look like. And some had, parking all over the place, and some had less. And I've seen schematics where they show what mixed use means. They show what having housing over a library looks like. And I don't think that we have enough of a stock of ideas out there for people to give informed feedback. If there were some options that were laid out for them, this has been done in Yarmouth, this was done here, and vote it up or down or answer a question about what you see. I think it would be a combination of idea dissemination as well as feedback.
So that's a possibility. I'm going to be budget conscious. I'm going to say we're just not budgeted to do any kind of graphics on this site. What we could do is a few case studies to, as you say, get some ideas out there for people to kind of respond to, things that they like about something that was done in another community. I think we can do that. But we don't have the budget to do a whole lot of like illustrations or graphics on this site. So I just want to be careful. I mean, I know you have the work that Union Studio did. We can try to bring some of that back in and say, here's what came out of that study. But I'm going to be careful about how much we sign on for, given how short the time is to get this project done.
I respect that. And I think that you could get images that have been created for other places, not tied to the site,
right,
but as examples of what do they mean by dense? I mean, some people are terrified by that
Yeah,
idea.
they are. I know, it's true. And we can do something like that, certainly. I
Great.
guess I also just want to make sure we give people an opportunity, much as you have had the opportunity today, to talk about sort of their concerns about what's happening in Orleans and where the town is going. I would not want to give that, I wouldn't want to set that aside. I think we have to think about how to design this meeting. I really would like to have a community input process in here.
I think, Judy, that would be really well received. You'd have good turnout, and it would allow some of us talking heads to just sit on the wings and not take over the conversation and listen. And I'd be happy just to listen
So I can kind of work on the scheduling on that with George.
with George, please.
Okay.
Matt Frunion, go ahead.
I don't know if it would work out, but I do want to at least mention that the possibility of a little partnership with the Arlene Citizens Forum, which puts on educational current issue educational things for the entire town. They've been doing it via Zoom, and they have a pretty large mailing list or membership list, and so they could certainly help. I think draw interest out of the community.
Okay, thank you.
We got to catch Bill Stockard on that one, Meth. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, as current chair and president of the board on the Orleans Citizens Forum, I think we could, safely can say we would certainly support doing whatever we could to advertise and be part of any support that we could provide to that type of a meeting, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. And Judy, I just saw a chat come in from Shelley. We do want to make sure when we get that package prepared to do some outreach to the community families, school families. So Mark had mentioned, contact through the school contacts. We want to make sure we have them invited.
Absolutely.
specifically. Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
We also want to be sure that we do it in a nighttime or an evening time. The people who are working will be able to go, because as much as I love the Citizens Forum, it's at 3:30 in the afternoon and a lot of people are still working. So I think we want to get as broad a base as we can of the people that we think we're trying to help. So I think we should consider that also.
Yeah, that would certainly work for us as well. I mean, the afternoon meetings are always wonderful for us too, because believe me, I live in night meetings. But I get it, that if you want to try to reach a lot of people, you have to recognize that folks who are working out of town or whatever during the day just can't participate. So that's fine too. We've even done things like this on a Saturday.
Sure.
Yeah.
Every town is different. I mean, I'm just saying, we've
Saturday.
had situations where some towns have said, the only way we can do this is like a Sunday afternoon. We just worked on a master plan with another consultant in Medfield. And when we asked them what makes the most sense for a community meeting there, they said Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock.
Wow.
There's no soccer, there's no, kids sports, everybody's home from church. And we had like 140 people at a meeting. It was just phenomenal. So every town is different. And I'll look to you guys for some direction on what makes the most sense for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So those are my questions. I mean, anything else that we need to cover, I'm happy to, try to respond to any questions or whatever from you folks.
Any other questions? Meth, go ahead, please.
I think it would be, and this may not be in your bailiwick at all, but I think the long-term financial sort of picture would be helpful if the town could be shown that. I mean, you could make the case that the town is just simply intervening here in the market for a short-term period while it controls the future use of the property, and that 2-3 years out, Orleans would be out of it without any financial stake in it. That may be wishful thinking, but the people are going to be focused on the purchase price, and that's the least useful number, I think, to judge exactly what the long-term financial commitment from the town is going to be.
Well, you're correct, but I think we also have to bear in mind that there's a limitation as to how many years your town can roll over short-term notes before it becomes long-term permanent debt.
Right.
And the cost of the acquisition goes up significantly. So one of the things I think you're all going to want to think about is what's feasible to do in that 2-year period from the time that you roll out the first ban to when it becomes permanent debt. And on that note, I would just simply say, I haven't looked at your zoning yet, but I would sure want to make sure that whatever you decide you want to do on this site, that you have it set up as of right zoning as much as you can.
Right.
There's a great story from Winchester, and I'll leave you with this because it's a good tale. They exercised years ago their right of first refusal for one of the last pieces of Chapter 61A land in their town. It's called the Winning Farm. Beautiful piece of property. And Winchester thought, we're going to buy it and we'll have an assisted living developer come and do an assisted living project on part of it, and we'll get the rest as open space, and it's going to be great, and we won't have any debt. And town meeting loved it. They approved it. They approved the zoning for the assisted living facility. They went through procurement. They got a developer. The developer came forth, applied for the special permit to do the assisted living facility. And that's when everything blew up. So the board went through the permitting process, approved the project, the neighborhood appealed, and meanwhile, the debt clock was ticking.
Wow.
So I have amazing war stories about this stuff. So I'm just saying, be thinking about, the sort of, when you're thinking about disposition planning for a site that you're acquiring, and you are trying to pay attention to sort of longer term cost versus, income considerations, just kind of bear in mind that if you're concerned about that, one of the things you're going to want to think about is how do you manage this process in a way that allows you to dispose of that site quickly and efficiently to someone who's going to be able to get a predictable approval. There you go.
Great story, Judy.
Oh, it was fabulous.
Great story.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, Judy, you're a wealth of knowledge, experience, the team. Catherine, we didn't hear from you much. I'm sure you were taking lots of notes, and we'll hear from you more, but I just have to say thank you for everyone who participated. Really great feedback, everyone. I think, Judy, you're going to have a very rich experience working with us. I think it's going to be wonderful when it comes out. Tight timeframes have benefits, don't they?
They do.
You got a deadline, get it done.
And I would just say, following up on this, if any of you think after we get off here about any particular people you think we should talk to, maybe email me, email George or whatever. That's sort of that thought leader question. I mean, we can't do a zillion interviews, but if there are a few people you think we really need to talk to, for their knowledge, for their political connections or whatever, just let us know, okay?
And before we sign off, I do want to recognize, and maybe Marcia, if you come off mute, just so people start to hear your voice, because they will more often. George Meservey, John Kelly announced to the select board last night, we have on board the part-time housing coordinator for the town of Orleans. Marcia, we are so glad to have you on board.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Good for you.
Awesome. Well, should we do formalities, or could just all the boards agree by a show of hands to adjourn?
Well, we're not adjourning. We can adjourn from this one, but we're staying on.
That's right, Nancy. We're rolling
Don't-
into your meeting.
Affordable
So,
housing stays on, please.
okay, so I'll just ask show of hands, select board members adjourned. That's a favorable vote. Mr. McLennan? All right. Very good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice
Yay.
evening.
Thank
Bye.
you, Judy.
Bye-bye.
Timing's perfect.
Excellent, perfect, excellent, good job. All right, so who do we have here now? I've got everybody. Do we have Rich? Is Rich Kendall here? No,
He was on as an attendee, I think.
okay, he's our clerk, so I wanted to make sure that he's here.
He's
Oh,
here.
there you are. Hello, Richard. Okay. Well, that was a good meeting, yes? All right. I'm going to call to order this part of the meeting, which is a continuation of the other Affordable Housing Committee meeting. And we have to be finished by 6:20 so that the next group can come on. So that's good because we've all used up most of our brain power already, but I really didn't want to let everything go until January. So I guess I'll start with George. We'll start with just an update on the Community Preservation Committee grants. I did send you all a copy of those and they are in waiting for the next step. And we know about Marcia, but I wanted to give George the enjoyment of of introducing her and his excitement for this new task. So let George start.
I just want to say, I think you all have heard this when we were talking about trying to find funding for a housing coordinator and considering who we might get to support our needs, who could help us to go forward. I expressed that I desperately wanted somebody who knew more than I do, more than I've gained from sitting in this chair for a few years. And in Marcia, I've got someone who is, the town will benefit from somebody with a lot of experience. It's in a different state. So we've already had some interchanges that challenge some of my assumptions. And I think that's really good because you have to go back and make sure that there's not a better way to do things that you just haven't thought of yet. So very excited to have the support from Marcia. I have to tell you, I think the sophistication of what we're doing and the ability to expedite some of our programs that, not the least of which is the community engagement plan. I think those things will move in a faster pace. So I hope that you can all engage at a slightly higher level so we can respond to the things that are brought forward and really craft a good program. So, we're in a position now to move 3 or 4 projects forward, but there are many other things to be done, and we need to make sure that the residents of the town are on board with us. So, very excited to have Marcia on, and I think she's gonna be a great fit in our community. So, thank you, Marcia, for agreeing to give us a 1-year trial by fire of this position.
Well, I'm really glad to join you in a slightly different capacity. But as I told Nancy, I'm still at your meetings. I'm still at your beck and call. So feel free to call upon me as you need.
We will, because when I heard the news, I was happy, but also concerned for our own rules. So this is going to be an additional partnership. So thank you for that. And do we have to get another person to get on this committee? Do we need to ask anybody, or are we all right with the numbers?
You are down 1, so it's always good to have a full slate.
So I think anybody knows anybody who might be already excited about this ideas, it would be really helpful. So let me know if anybody we might consider. So, and I'll mention it to Kevin as well. Okay. I had a concern about the housing sites. Right now we have, actually, let me go back one moment. Does anybody would like to make any comments about the meeting we just attended? Because I feel like we just got all the stuff in our head and then we're suddenly moving on to the next thing. Does anybody have any comments that they'd like to make about what we just done with Judy? Before you might forget them. Everybody's okay with that? No? Okay, everybody's happy. Okay. As we all know, we've got quite a few projects on the horizon of things that people are talking about, and the newspapers and everybody's talking about them all, and I think they're all fine. But I have one concern that I would like to make a motion and then have a discussion about. At least 3 times it's been said, and there's been at least 2 or 3 references in the Cape Cod Chronicle to a comment that's been made with the select board that I feel like I would like to ask our committee to make a response to. And I'm bringing this up as a discussion piece and we'll go from there. And the motion would be that the Affordable Housing Committee communicates with the select board to state that we do not support the use of the Bay Ridge free site as a site for affordable housing. It has come up several times. It's been in the newspaper. And I feel on several, I know that the idea is, well, this is free land, so-called, and this is a great place to put affordable housing. I'm against it. I don't think it's the image we're trying to create. We have such wonderful projects already in process. And I think it's a deterrence to our image. And I would like somebody, could I get a second for that motion? Then we'll have a discussion. Can anybody second that motion? Or you all want Bay Ridge? Are you all there? Fran?
I'll second it, but here's a technical question. Can we address this when it's not on the agenda?
Well, actually, I spoke to Kevin about this. It is on the agenda as housing site. It wasn't specifically it's as a housing. And I did speak with Kevin Gallagher before I even did this, the select board chair. And he said that was perfectly fine for us to do that. So I did check with him. Is that all right? Does that sound good enough? I tried those two roads and I didn't want to, I just put housing sites as a general comment. So would you second that, Fran?
Yes.
It's any discussion here? Andrea?
I'm sorry, as your select board liaison, if you do go ahead with this, I would love you to raise the select board's awareness of environmental justice issues relative to housing. They came up at the WF Webb project or FW Webb project. A very articulate resident from Opus Way raised the issue. And I think that there are many of us who are not aware of the impacts of environmental justice with housing. And certainly it goes back to some of the racial justice issues that as a town, we could up our thinking on it. So yes, please bring this to the.
Maybe I could put that as part of my motion, the comment for that, and we can see what comes after that. All right, any other discussion, George?
Yeah, so the old highway garage is a 3-acre site. It's had there was originally a 21E done on it about 2 or 3 years ago. Came up, quote, clean. I'm not sure that is much more than a sniff test of the property, but regardless, it's a 3-acre site that's currently used for cold storage of summer equipment right now. And there's some stockpiling of sand for the winter. Other than that, the building and site are not used. So I would just, in thinking this through, Nancy, I would consider if the town made that property available to the Affordable Housing Committee, would you work with it or would you reject it? So like you could take no action right now and it sits there until such time as the town wants to do something with the property. So that's all. You know, I just, look, I've been in the position of being a beggar on affordable housing for a long time. We have a wealth of projects now. That may not always be the case. That's just my comment. Thanks.
Shelley?
I just would like to know more about your thinking on it. There is residential housing up in that area, so it's not like it would be an isolated, residential area from everything else. I know you have to get through commercial to get there, but I don't know what the issues are. So I'm asking for.
You need to take a drive down there because it's surrounded by industrial type buildings. It's not a neighborhood. Everything is car repairs and DPW things. And
behind it is neighborhood. If you go all the way to the end, there's neighborhood.
Where are you talking?
On Bay Ridge.
Okay, well, from the road, it does not appear that way. I think they were putting it in. I don't know. I feel like I go with, my feeling is there's a lot of money. People are asking for a lot of money from the town. We're talking about $2 million for the CPC possibilities for CC5. And then there's going to be another ask for Governor Prince sometime. And so the message we're sending with these little offhanded comments to me are that, well, we could get it cheaper. We could put it someplace else. Why don't we save some money? And I think the whole point of it was for us to try to set up something that was going to benefit the town, but also augment the town and not just find another place to put it. We've got, we can leave it there, but the fact that I've heard it at least 5 times in the last month tells me that I'm not the only one hearing it. And I don't really want to undermine any of the other projects that are seeming to be very positive. And, you know, I feel like it's detrimental to our overall theme.
So if I understand you right, Nancy, you're more concerned about the fact that this property is being talked about as an alternate site to some other project that we're either currently involved in or contemplating, rather than that, as George was saying, down the road sometime, this town-owned property might be a good site for, or a possible site for housing.
That's about it. And we
Okay.
can also put at this time. We could also put in our motion to amend and say at this time, and that would leave us open for the future.
Right.
But I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot by having people start talking about, oh, well, we can get this land for free. Why do we need to do that? It's not a comparable project by any means. And we
Right.
also have work been done on these other projects. I just don't feel it's helpful in terms of community engagement at this point in time. Bill?
Yeah, community focus.
Yeah, just following up on Shelley's comment. I personally have not heard those comments, and I guess as just to confirm that your concern for the present time is these comments are being made as using this site rather than the Main Street site, or rather than looking at Cape Cod 5.
Well, it's not that clear. It's more of just a response to every time the topic comes up. No one has said, switch this for that, but
Okay.
I've heard it 3 times on select board meetings, and I've seen it 3 times in the Cape Cod, it's in this week's Cape Cod Chronicle on the online thing again. So I'm just saying that, you know I go to town meetings, I know how people think, and I think that sometimes, you can put an idea in somebody's head that you don't even think is a problem. So that's all I was bringing it up.
Well, I would just, I'd be cautious into if we could word it so that it left that door open. I would rather not have it be worded that forget this site as an affordable housing site forever.
Okay,
It's not
that's a
suitable.
good point.
If there's some way it could be worded, I understand your concern. And it's kind of reminded me for a long time, there was talk of why aren't we using the underground mall for affordable housing? And that was finally put to rest with statements and comments that made sense as to why that would not be a particular site. But again, I would not want to just completely close the door on this site as a future potential. So I'd be a
Okay.
little cautious in the wording.
I think that's why we're having a discussion, because everybody has something to add. So can I send this out? Is that a lot? No, I can't do that. If at this,
Nancy, could you read it again, what you wrote down?
I'd say Affordable Housing would like to communicate with the select board to state that we do not at this time support the use of Bay Ridge as a site for affordable housing. No?
I mean, there's no basis for that though, Nancy, really, other than what you're.
Economic justice.
Street. I mean, I don't know what we would base that position on, I guess is my concern.
Okay, well, we can leave it, but I want you all to be aware of it because it's out there.
How about if we add something like talking about or considering at this time? What we're saying is, if I'm reading you right, is that people are talking about the site like we should be considering it now.
Right.
Right? So maybe we need to put the word talking in there somehow, that we are not supporting, that we request that they not be talking about that site at this point in time, kind of.
I don't know. I'm so glad I brought this up, but it's really been bothering me for the last couple of weeks. So I don't, maybe you can just, maybe our liaison can just sort of spread that word informally.
Actually, I think George is right. I think that you don't necessarily need to engage. If you want to make a formal statement, do it in a way that educates and puts you in the leadership position to recommend sites. So define your reasons why the site doesn't work based on your values. But on the other hand, you have a great power because you are the recommending body for site development, and you can accept or reject. And I also think you ought to challenge us to think of other uses for quote unquote free land that are about economic development, if not housing. So depending on which way you want to go on this, you may want to hold off a little bit, Nancy, and codify how you go after sites and lead by telling us, the select board, because eventually, as with Governor Prince, the select board grabbed an opportunity that rightfully or down the road should come from your committee. And we're not yet there. We haven't evolved that far. So if you are going to make a statement, I think you ought to, that's why I was interested in environmental justice issues. Make the statement when you're ready to show the leadership about site acquisition. That would be my 2 cents.
I think this is a really good discussion to be continued. And I think there's some, but I think it also goes into our community engagement process, because maybe we need to talk about how we choose things. And it's just not a case of it's available, but there is some other reasoning for, why we recommend the things we do. Fran.
I think, Nancy, you brought up the opportunity of using our liaison, and I think that's an appropriate opportunity that, Andrea, you can speak to the fact that the committee is not showing a lot of enthusiasm about that site, and we'll be working on some criteria that and reasons why for a future presentation, something like that.
That work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments?
I think you have a motion on the floor, which you need to withdraw.
I'll withdraw my motion. Thank you.
I'll withdraw the second.
Got all that, Richard? So the motion has been withdrawn and the second has been withdrawn, but the topic still remains.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I don't want to wear ourselves out completely tonight because I know this has been a long night. And the you received your community engagement plan, the updates. I'm really pleased that we are where we are in terms of this, because I think it's going to be necessary sooner than later in terms of following up on what Judy Barrett and her team do, because I think there's going to be more opportunities for future engagement. So, but I have a feeling this is not the best time of the night for us to go through this in a lot of detail. But what I liked about it was it had a time factor of time to 2021 to 2022, which gives us a parameter to work in. It has goals and a process. It has a timeline, and it mentions a lot of our resources and materials that we have. Sometimes I feel like what we're doing is like when in your home, when you think you don't have something, you start looking around your home and you say, oh, I remember I had this. Well, it seems like we've got a lot of studies and a lot of information that we have been working on over the last few years that that just seem to have come together now. And our job is to, as Ward said a little while, find some nuggets and find some ways to really take this information and start to really clarify it. So how we do that is a really tricky thing, but now we have Marcia working on this. So I suppose, and I don't have to be as worried as I was a month ago. And the other piece that we also have that Fran worked on that y'all got was the expanded definitions of, which I think would be a wonderful thing in a while to share with the select board. Because a lot of those comments, I mean, the last few meetings I've been watching and taking notes about what the questions are, and there's a lot of questions that are just repeated over and over again. And so I think that would might be another way that we could share some of those as well. Fran, you had some questions that you wanted to ask about. I don't know if do you want to do?
I would like people, when they have an opportunity, to review those definitions and to obviously correct things they think that are wrong. add things that they think should be added, and or subtract things. And then I was wondering about, how we just, as we talk about our public engagement, how we disseminate the information, whether we give it to everybody, everything to everybody, or whether we have selected audiences with selected definitions as we move forward. But if people could, I don't know, is this possible for people to send to Nancy edits to that, and that Nancy, you could communicate them to me directly?
I think that's fine, if as long as it's just two people. Yeah, so if you can send it to me and I can compile it and give it to Fran. I
Okay.
think we did that with our other process and that worked out all right, as long as everybody was just sending it to me and we weren't debating it. But I understand that two people can talk offline is what I'm understanding. Is that correct? So we could, if that would work for you people, that you would really look through that. It's a lot of information there, but if you, I'd like you to read it as if you didn't know what, as if you were new to it, to see how much sense it makes to you. It has to be correct, Fran is right, but if you could read those, as if you were just looking at that as somebody who didn't know a whole lot about housing, would this make sense to you? Or would there be another question, a follow-up question that we might be able to look? So try to look at it from that vantage point versus
excellent.
And we've been moving along fast. I realize the holidays are coming, but I think by our next meeting in January, we probably need to make some real decisions on timelines and things like that, and the sooner we do that, the better, I think. And I think we made some real progress, and I think we ought to just keep at it for another month or so, and I think we might have something involved. Yes, George?
So Nancy, are we going to go back to this community engagement plan? Because I'm not sure we've discussed it as a group.
No, we have
The way
not.
forward, and I'd love to hear kind of an explanation of how it kind of will play out practically, and that may help us to kind of make some adjustments if necessary based on what we all individually know. This may be exactly right, but maybe some fresh eyes at our next meeting. Maybe we can put this first on the agenda.
I would like it to be the whole agenda. That was my whole plan, that this was going to be our agenda, and then they took our meeting time for this government, which was really important, but that this was my whole plan. That was what I was going to do, because we were really at a good thinking point. I don't think we can do that in the next 20 minutes, give it justice that it deserves. But if you have, has everybody had a chance to at least scan it? Yes? Has everybody at least looked at it a little bit? Okay. Does anyone have any general comments that they want to, that stood out to them at this point? Because I think I wanted to go through it page by page and really, look at it, but I'm not sure that we're all able to do that at this point in time, on this particular night. So is there anyone who has any general comments about the process as designed? Bill?
Well, I thank you, Marcia, for putting this together. This is, it's quite a document. There is an awful lot in here. And, but I think it's following up on our previous meetings and our discussions. This really encapsulated for me what we were talking about, trying to develop a plan for. So I think it's excellent, an excellent document. I agree with you, Nancy. I would not want to just briefly go running through it. I think, as you said, your goal is our next meeting. This is the agenda item, and I think it'll give us all more time to go through it at the same time. So, but I think it's really as a follow-up to where our last couple of meetings. I think it's an excellent start. Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Ward, you wanted to join our meeting because we were talking about community engagement. Should I give you a moment to say something about that? We're glad you came.
I'm reminded of the title of a book. It was The Spy in the House of Love. And so here I am. I wanted to thank you, Nancy, for inviting me and letting me come. And there was, going back to our guiding principles, the idea that, people would be open to coming in either way. I just wanted to ask what the best way for me to participate and to add some feedback. I was very interested in Marcia's job. I was encouraged, as you were, that things are moving forward. And, you know, my way is to annotate and make some contributions. I could do that in writing. I could give them to you. I could give them to Marcia. I could give them to the whole committee. I'm not sure the best way to participate that way. I would be happy to come to your following meeting.
Okay.
We'd be happy to come to almost any of your meetings which are about this topic.
That's good. I think the more cross pollination, or whatever you can't call it that, the more cross we do over with our two committees, I think it's very important. I think that was the whole idea of the guiding principles, and that was our big fear. And I did read an article about another town that was having a lot of trouble trying to figure out how they interact. And I think thanks to you and Fran and the willingness of Affordable Housing Trust Board to include us and everything, I think that we're doing really well in terms of supporting each other and using all of our brain power to see if we can get to the end of the task, which is more affordable housing. So I think love fest is the word, I suppose. Marcia, do you want to say something about?
Yeah, I'm not sure the best way. I mean, I guess on one level, if generally people think this is the right way to go, and it's just a matter of edits here or additions there and a little bit of modification, then we can work through that in a number of ways. I will say, I don't know if George would agree, but this does depend, one, on consultant services, because this is a lot to do with basically a volunteer group. And two, even with consultant services, depending on what's out there, this is a lot to do. So I put in more rather than less because it's easier to cut out rather than add in. But what happens when you start, Ward, no offense at all, but once you start annotating, you start adding in. And so therefore you get more tasks and more everything. And actually, I would rather the group say, well, the most important things are 1, 2, and 3. You know, these are sort of less important, so that we get an idea of what is really, really important to do in a year versus if we had all the resources we need and everything fell into place, we can do this. Because this is more than just a little bit of work. This is a lot of work.
And to follow up on exactly what you're saying, the way I was going to approach this was to prioritize, first of all, see what we might be able to do individually on our own, within our committee, find some tasks that some of us are comfortable with on that to supplement you and George. So we don't just say, okay, now we got Marcia, she's gonna do it all, because that's not, I don't even want to do that, even if that would be the easy way out. I think we put a lot of thought into this, and I think we want to still be involved in it. So I think we'd prioritize what's important, see what we could do individually to help meet some of these goals. And third, when could we use our original CPC grant for education toward some of these goals? So we have 3 things in place that would take us to the next step. And that's sort of how I wanted to outline the meeting had I had the chance to do that. So
could I say one more thing?
Sure.
Having come from that previous meeting, you might want to prioritize the support of the ongoing projects. So for example, if we're going to town meeting early next year, then you might want to look at those pieces that would have the Affordable Housing Committee reinforce the housing needs, however the study comes out, but assuming there's housing on the site, and organize the support for town meeting so that we can actually move forward with whatever plan comes out of this. So it seems to me, given that there are real projects that have to move forward, I would think we should prioritize the support for the projects in addition to the general education.
which in the education is going to be implicit in the support, because we're not going to just say follow along. We're going to have to give them reasons why we think it's a great idea. So it'll play, those 2 things will play together quite easily, I would think.
And you know, you've all been around the block. Nothing's done until it's done. I've heard people tell me that the Cape Cod 5 project, oh, that's a done deal, right? That project's not funded or permitted, And we haven't even heard from the condo neighbors or the grocery store. So there are potential issues, and getting ahead of those with positive messaging, I think would be really valuable.
And there's also the 107 Main Street that's sort of hanging in by a thread here and we started talking, but we haven't done it. So I think the general picture of that question during the meeting was, well, do we need all this housing? Do we need it all? So many projects all at once so I think we need to go back, take a few steps and show why these numbers came up and why, even though we're lucky that things have become available, it wasn't like we suddenly just said, let's do it all because it would be fun to do it. We have a basis for why we need this many projects. All right, any other general comments? You all agree that this is for January 5th, correct? I mean, can't do this tonight. You really got to go back, and I would like all of you to sort of see what Marcia said about the support would be important. And also just go through it and just yourself. Let's not annotate or do that right now. Let's all just look at it ourselves, pick out the things that we think are the most important, and we'll do another brainstorm like we did a couple of months ago, which was say, this is what we think about this and that, and then we'll put it together and decide what to go to next. I think, just like Judy said, I think we need the community input before the final thing is done. I think we also need this committee's input before we confirm that this is the way we want to go. So does that make sense to y'all? Yes? I want y'all to go home happy, you know? All right, so you have 2 assignments. I know this is hard work, but it's going to be worth it. And so go through the process, the engagement plan, and go through Fran's definitions. We're back to our normal Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month at 4:30 meeting. Hopefully that will be, oh, yes, Shirley. Mute. Are you muted?
Yeah, I just said fingers crossed that we actually get to have our meeting.
Well, why?
That-
Because somebody
I
else
mean,
will
just our
call.
committee, that something else doesn't come up to
I'm
take
gonna
us
try
away.
really hard to hold on
Yeah.
to mine. I couldn't do this with the consultant this time because that was a
No.
3 But we really need our meeting because that's happened to us quite often. And the meetings we do have just ourselves, we have really accomplished a lot.
Right.
So I will keep my fingers crossed and I will try to be as forceful as possible so that we get it, but put that down. Do we have any other future agenda topics, please? Please, no, this is it. Yes? Any more future agenda topics? How about approval of the minutes from November 2nd? I have one correction. There was, we did not, the approval of the minutes for October 6th was not included. I think it was 700 approval, but we need to say that we approve the October 6 minutes. So do I, any other corrections or additions?
Oh, I was muted. Just one minor one, where it's my statement, Bill echoed the need to clarify affordable housing in our own, and it says lives. I believe I meant minds. If I didn't say minds, I meant in our own minds, not in our own lives. So just a minor correction for that. Other than that, I'd make a motion.
Motion to approve, second? Do you have someone to second? Okay, a roll call vote to approve the November 2nd meeting, November 2nd minutes with 2 corrections. Bill?
Aye.
Fran?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
I think that's it. Nancy, yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there any other new business or anything else anyone needs to talk about? Our next meeting is scheduled, hopefully, for our committee, Shelley, on Tuesday, January 5th at 4:30 p.m. You do have homework, and I appreciate you spending all this time together on this topic.
Thank you, Nancy.
Vote
Thanks,
Move
Nancy.
to
Yes,
adjourn.
thank you,
I think I have to
Nancy.
move to adjourn.
So move.
Roll call, Bill,
Second.
Aye.
George, second, George, Andrea. I guess we all have to. Fran, Shelley,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Nancy. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for everything you did today.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank
you
you,
all.
Nancy.
Nancy.
You're doing a great job for us.
We all are. Thank you very much. Good job.